Hey there, I'm Sophia, a 35-year-old single mom just trying to make sense of this crazy world. It's just me, my amazing 12-year-old daughter, Emily, and our little home in the suburbs. It might not be fancy, but it's ours. I work as a nurse, putting in long, grueling shifts to keep a roof over our heads and food on the table. Emily is a special kid, sharp as a tack and bursting with creativity. She's got this wild curly hair that could give Rapunzel a run for her money, and she loves expressing herself through it. Then there's Gertrude, my ex-mother-in-law and constant headache. She's a 68-year-old widow who lives far too close for comfort. Sure, she helps out with Emily after school, but her nagging drives me up the wall. Sophia, don't you think Emily's hair is a bit wild? Gertrude's voice grates on my nerves as I hurry to get ready for work. I take a deep breath. It's just hair, Gertrude. She likes it that way. In my day, young ladies knew how to present themselves properly. She huffs. I bite my tongue, reminding myself that beggars can't be choosers when it comes to free childcare. Thank God for Sarah, my best friend and fellow nurse. She's my anchor, always there to listen or lend a hand with Emily when Gertrude becomes unbearable. Girl, I don't know how you deal with that old bat, Sarah says over coffee one day. You've got the patience of a saint. I laugh. Trust me, it's running thin. Then there's Michael, my neighbor. He's a total sweetheart, always offering to help around the house. I'd be lying if I said I hadn't noticed how he looks at me. But after everything with Emily's dad, I'm in no rush to dive back into the dating scene. Hey, Sophia, need a hand with that? Michael calls out as I fumble with some boxes in the driveway. Thanks, Michael. You're a lifesaver, I say, trying not to notice how his shirt clings to his arms as he lifts the box. Life isn't perfect, but with good neighbors and the occasional handsome handyman, it's not all bad. The real drama in my life is the constant tug-of-war with Gertrude over how to raise Emily. Emily, sit up straight. A lady doesn't slouch, Gertrude scolded during dinner one night. I saw Emily's shoulders slump even more. Mom, do I have to listen to her? Emily asked, her eyes pleading with me. Just try your best, sweetie, I said, shooting Gertrude a sharp look. We all have different ideas about what's important, I added. Different ideas indeed, Gertrude muttered under her breath. If you just listened to me, Sophia, that child wouldn't be running wild. I clenched my fists under the table. Emily is not running wild, she's expressing herself, and I won't stifle that. Mark my words, Sophia, Gertrude said, her voice icy. Without proper discipline, that girl will end up in trouble. As I watched Emily retreat to her room, her wild curls bouncing behind her, I wondered how long I could keep this delicate balance. Something had to give, and when it did, it wasn't going to be pretty. I was dead on my feet after another grueling shift at the hospital. All I wanted was to hug my baby girl and collapse into bed. But the moment I stepped through the door, I knew something was wrong. Emily, sweetie, I'm home, I called out. But there was no answer, just an eerie silence that made my skin crawl. I found her curled up in bed, sobbing. When she looked up at me, my heart nearly stopped. Her beautiful curls were gone, every single one. Her head had been shaved clean. Mom, Emily wailed, throwing herself into my arms. Grandma, she did it while I was sleeping. I held her tightly, my mind spinning. Shoo, baby, it's okay. We'll fix this, I whispered, but inside, I was screaming. How could Gertrude do this to my child? Fury surging through me, I stormed into the living room where Gertrude sat, calm as ever. What the hell did you do? I shouted. She didn't even flinch. I did what needed to be done. That child was becoming far too vain and disobedient. Vain? Disobedient? She's a 12-year-old girl, I snapped. Precisely, Gertrude replied coolly. It's high time she learned some discipline. This isn't your day, Gertrude. I cut her off, shaking with rage. This is assault. I'm calling the police. Gertrude scoffed. Don't be dramatic. Sophia, I've put up with your lenient parenting long enough. Someone had to step in before Emily turned into a delinquent like her father. That's when I lost it. Get out of my house. Now. Gladly, Gertrude sneered, gathering her things. Mark my words, you'll regret not heeding my advice. That girl needs a firm hand. as the door slammed behind her. The full weight of what had just happened hit me like a ton of bricks. I sank to the floor, tears streaming down my face. Then suddenly, there was a knock at the door. It was Michael at the door, his face full of concern. "Sophia, is everything okay?" I heard shouting. One look at me, and he knew it wasn't. "What happened?" he asked, his voice soft but urgent. I couldn't find the words, my throat tightened, and all I could do was point toward Emily's room. Michael walked in, and when he saw her, his eyes widened in shock. "Oh my God, who did this?" "Gertrude," I managed to choke out, my voice trembling with fury. His expression hardened. "That's it. I'm calling the police." "No," Emily cried, her voice breaking. "I don't want anyone to see me like this." She looked so small, so vulnerable. I pulled her into my arms, trying to soothe her. "It's okay, baby. We won't do anything you're not comfortable with," I whispered, my heart aching. Michael knelt beside us, his tone gentle. "Is there anything I can do?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. It was Sarah. "Sophia, what's going on? I got your missed call, and you sounded upset in the voicemail." Through my sobs, I tried to explain. "Gertrude, she shaved Emily's head." "That evil witch," Sarah exclaimed. "I'm coming over right now." In no time, Sarah burst through the door, her arms loaded with bags. "Okay, I've got hats, scarves, and some cute pixie-cut photos for inspiration. We're going to get through this," she declared, her voice filled with determination. Emily managed a weak smile as Sarah worked her magic, trying to salvage what was left of her hair, while Sarah busied herself with Emily. I sat down with Michael and told him the whole sordid history with Gertrude, the years of tension, the endless battles, and how I had let her get too close. "I can't believe I ever let that woman near Emily," I said, the guilt clawing at me. Michael squeezed my hand, his voice steady. "This isn't your fault, Sophia. You were just trying to do right by your daughter. You were doing your best." His words were comforting, but deep down, I knew this was far from over. Sarah chimed in, her voice firm. "The only person to blame here is that old bat, Gertrude." I nodded, but the guilt gnawed at me. How could I have been so blind? As the night wore on, Emily finally drifted into an exhausted sleep. Sarah and Michael insisted on staying, setting up camp in the living room. Lying in bed, staring at the ceiling, I made a silent vow. Gertrude would pay for what she had done, one way or another. My baby girl deserved nothing less. The next few days were a blur of tears, anger, and sleepless nights. Emily refused to leave her room, let alone go to school. I called in sick, knowing she needed me more than anything. "Sweetie, you can't hide forever," I said gently, sitting on the edge of her bed. "I look like a freak." "Mom," Emily sobbed, "everyone's going to laugh at me." My heart shattered all over again. "No, baby, you're beautiful, inside and out. We'll get through this together." Our first stop was the police station, but it was a massive disappointment. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but since there was no physical harm, this is a civil matter," the officer said, barely looking up from his desk. "No physical harm?" I exploded, gesturing toward Emily. "Look at my daughter." But rules were rules, apparently. So, our next stop was a lawyer. "We can definitely pursue charges for emotional abuse," the lawyer explained, "and sue for damages, but it won't be easy." I didn't care. I was out for blood. Sarah was a rock through it all, helping me document everything, photos, timelines, you name it. She kept me focused. "We're going to nail that old witch to the wall," Sarah declared as we worked late into the night, and I was determined to make sure she was right. Meanwhile, Michael was working his own magic. "I've got a buddy who specializes in family law," he told me. "Top-notch guy. He's willing to take your case pro bono." I could have kissed him right then and there, but there was no time for that. Things were about to get even messier. It started with whispers at the grocery store, sidelong glances from neighbors, then came the calls from distant relatives. "Sophia, is it true you've been neglecting Emily?" my cousin asked, concern dripping from her voice. That's when it hit me. Gertrude was on the offensive. "She's telling everyone I'm an unfit mother," I raged to Sarah and Michael. "That witch is trying to turn the whole world against me." But Gertrude had underestimated me. I started digging, calling up old babysitters, family friends, anyone who'd ever interacted with her and Emily. The stories I uncovered made my blood run cold. Grandma said if I told you, she'd send me away to boarding school, Emily confessed one night, tears streaming down her face. She used to lock me in the closet when I misbehaved. I pulled her close, fury and guilt battling inside me. How could I have missed this? It's not your fault, sweetie, I assured her, holding back my own tears. But I promise you, Grandma will never hurt you again. With Sarah and Michael's help, we devised a plan. Hidden cameras went up around the house. We coached Emily on how to safely gather evidence if Gertrude tried to contact her. Remember, kiddo, Michael said, showing Emily how to use the voice recorder on her phone. If Grandma calls or comes over, hit this button right away. Emily nodded solemnly. I won't let you down, Mom. You can never let me down, baby, I said, hugging her tightly. We're in this together. As we finalized our preparations, a grim determination settled over me. Gertrude thought she could bully and manipulate her way to victory, but she had no idea what was coming. This mama bear was ready to fight, and I wasn't about to lose. All right, team, I said, looking at Sarah and Michael, let's take this witch down. The trap was set. Now all we had to do was wait for Gertrude to make her move, and when she did, we'd be ready. The day of the trial finally arrived, and my stomach churned with nerves. Emily squeezed my hand as we walked into the courtroom. You got this, Mom, she whispered. Our lawyer presented the mountain of evidence we had collected. The hidden camera footage was damning, showing Gertrude barging into our home, screaming threats at Emily. You ungrateful little brat. Her voice echoed in the courtroom. I'll teach you to disobey me. I saw the judge's face darken, but that was just the beginning. One by one, witnesses took the stand, former babysitters, family friends, even Emily's old piano teacher. Each one shared chilling stories of Gertrude's cruelty. Piece by piece, the case against her grew stronger, and I could see her smug confidence slowly crumbling. She told me if I didn't make Emily practice for 3 hours a day, she'd have me fired, the piano teacher testified. But the rail kicker came when Emily took the stand. My brave girl stood there, her voice trembling but resolute. Grandma said if I ever told Mom what she did, she'd make sure I was taken away, Emily said, her eyes welling up with tears. My heart shattered as I watched her speak, tears streaming down my face. How had I not seen this? Gertrude's lawyer tried to spin her as a concerned grandmother, but it was too late. The truth was out, and everyone could see it. When the judge finally announced his decision, I nearly collapsed from relief. This court grants a permanent restraining order against the defendant, he declared. Furthermore, significant damages are awarded for the plaintiff's therapy and emotional distress. It was over. Gertrude was out of our lives for good. Outside the courtroom, Gertrude approached us, tears in her eyes. Sophia, Emily, I'm so sorry, she began. I cut her off, my voice cold. Save it, Gertrude, you're dead to us. Without looking back, we walked away, and for the first time in years, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. The next few months were tough, but we got through it together. Emily started therapy and, little by little, began coming out of her shell. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table with Sarah and Michael, Emily made an announcement. I want to donate the money from the lawsuit, she said, her voice steady, to help other kids like me. I couldn't have been prouder of her. As for me and Michael, well, let's just say he became a permanent fixture in our lives. His steady support through everything meant the world to us. But the real turning point came about 6 months after the trial. I think the question of whether some betrayals are unforgivable is deeply personal and complex. It really depends on the context of the betrayal, the nature of the relationship, and individual values and experiences. In cases where trust has been profoundly violated, like with Gertrude's actions, forgiveness can be incredibly difficult. Some people might find it hard to move past such deep hurts, and in those cases, the focus might shift to healing and moving forward rather than reconciliation. On the other hand, forgiveness can be a powerful tool for personal peace and growth. It doesn't always mean forgetting or reconciling, but it can be about releasing the hold that anger or resentment has on you. Sometimes, Forgiveness can even pave the way for personal transformation and a healthier future, even if it doesn't include the person who caused the harm. Ultimately, whether or not to forgive and how to handle betrayal is a personal decision. It's important to do what feels right for your own well-being and growth. Do you think there are certain boundaries that should never be crossed? Or do you see forgiveness as a way to heal even the deepest wounds?